I'm joined now by the writer and disability activist Mandy Colleran and by crossbench peer Baroness Meacher, who is also chair of the campaign group Dignity in Dying. Mandy, what does that film do to you?
It just makes me feel both very sad and very angry, really. The portrayal of from everything from the music, the negative music and the kind of emotional heartstrings that's pulling. I mean, obviously it's a terrible illness for Noel to have, and nobody is saying that people should suffer. But the problem is, when you're talking about a change in legislation that affects the whole population, then we have to take a broader view, I'm afraid.
Do you feel threatened by such a change?
Absolutely, I do. And I think, unfortunately, things are not black and white, particularly where medicine's concerned. And there are no clear-cut definitions between having a terminal illness, say, and a life-threatening one or a life-limiting one, which many of us have. I was told, my parents were told I was only going to live less than 3 months. So,
well, Meacher, this is the crux of the matter, isn't it? I mean, how do you reassure somebody like Mandy?
I think the crucial thing is this is about people who are dying. They have no more than 6 months to live and, of course, are mentally capacitous. What they found in countries where they've introduced such a law is that people don't actually use their right to assisted dying until the last weeks, maybe even the last week or days. We're not talking about people having assistance to die 6 months ahead of their death. Not at all. They might start to think about it, start having the conversation, start filling in the forms. And what has been very interesting, I think, is that the hospice movement, for example, in Oregon, who were very worried about the law, very worried beforehand and fought against it, are now hugely supportive. Why? Because it provides a better death for people, and across the country people are able to live well until the end of their lives because they don't have to worry about unbearable suffering and an intolerable death. That's the key, really.
Mandy.
I'm afraid that's actually not correct. In the last House of Lords debate, Lord Alton actually quoted Dr. Theo Boer, who's actually on the regional review in the Netherlands around assisted suicide, and he pointed out that there's been a 15% increase in assisted to death and has started to include not only people with 6 months left to live, people with mental illness, people with dementia, and he actually has said, also pointed out very importantly, the pressure on physicians.
So Mandy is really articulating the fear of drift.
Whereas actually, of course, the crucial point here is that the Netherlands have always had a euthanasia law. We're not talking about a euthanasia law, we're talking about assisted suicide, and that's what they have in Oregon, California and elsewhere. And in those countries there's been no slippery slope at all, and there has not been any abuse. In fact, people who are dying feel much safer, and they are much safer, of course, because today in Britain about 2,000 plus doctors do actually help their patients to die.
But let's cut to quick for a moment. I mean, in observing, I mean, we're outsiders, we're not doctors, but
indeed
we look at Noel.
Yeah.
I mean, is he 6 months from death? I mean, is he at the point at which he would be allowed to choose?
I don't think he is yet, because they're not certain at all, actually, that he will die. No, they're not certain, and he is not certain that he will definitely die within 6 months. And it has to be 2 doctors who say this person will die within 6 months before you begin the process, which takes months and months and months. And we're therefore talking about the last weeks of life, when life really, I mean, his life is going to become utterly intolerable. And he will ultimately just be put out. And so he doesn't want that.
Mandy, what comfort could you give? What comfort could you give Noel then?
Well, I think I have to challenge that because, to say his life is going to be intolerable is very subjective.
Well, he thinks it's intolerable already.
Well,
really
he doesn't.
Intolerable.
He doesn't. So
well, he does find it. I met him. I had tea with him in the House of Lords. I found it intolerable.
But that's your judgment.
No, of course it is.
That's not his.
Of course it is.
You've spoken exactly about the lack of certitudes even the medical profession has. Who's to say that he has how do we actually get to know when people have 6 months left to live? The British Medical Association, again and again, and in their review in 2014, are utterly opposed to assisted dying. They are. They see it as a slippery slope, and also it completely undermines the health service, how doctors are trained. Doctors are trained, doctors take qualification.
Well,
they train as doctors to first do no harm.
I think
That's
sadly
wonderful.
what you've both done, in a sense, is to illustrate the immense difficulty that judges are going to have in deciding this case. But thank you both very, very warmly for coming in.
Thank you.
Krishnan.